Welcome to another edition of Choreograph Critics Podcast. Today we will be discussing the Raw preview for January 6th, 2025.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm John. Joining me as always is Joel.
Hey, happy holidays to everybody. Happy New Year. It's been a while, John. We've been very busy with the extravagant festivities.
Oh yeah, and the festivities around being sick as well.
Yeah, that's right. Back to back to back. Yeah, having kids. Who knew?
Yeah, so last time we were here was right after Thanksgiving. We're now recording just a little bit after Christmas here. The only really big thing that happened in between what we did and now was Saturday night's main event. And it was a really fun show. We got to see Jesse the Body Ventura. We got all the 1980s themed, aesthetics to it and everything. I thought we were gonna get more than one match with Jesse on commentary, but that's okay. I mean,
So did I. He didn't at first. He felt out of place with Joe in the intro, but I still feel like Joe is out of place.
sure.
But once he fell in and commentary with the Rhodes match, I thought he did very well. I will say that Saturday night's main event aesthetically was great. The presentation was great, as you mentioned, the colors, the throwback. The overall production was fantastic. I loved the closeness with the crowd, with the barriers. You got those classic steel barriers that you used to see in the late 80s, 90s. Um, and the talent, I don't know if you caught, but I felt like the talent wasn't used to that. They were walking through, kind of shimmying
Yeah,
through a
yeah.
corridor. They're like, oh man, oh, they're touching me.
Yeah,
And it's like, well, yeah, you're.
Gunther was like this basically.
That's right. He has aristocratic sensibilities. But yeah, it was a great show. What came out of that, we know that we crowned United States Women's Champion,
Correct.
uh, Chelsea Green. That was pretty good. We also got the Kevin Owens going ultimate heel. I thought that was done in a way that was tasteful. I really admire how they've maneuvered around the pile driver being this like banned forbidden move into something that could potentially end your career, and if you use it, that's like the ultimate bad guy. Oh my god, can you believe not only did he try to use a chair, but then he tried to cripple Cody Rhodes.
Right.
So
And some people, I mean, if they're tuned in all the time, they saw then on Raw that stuff happen with Kevin, but in the moment, like the show ended, you just see Cody Rhodes go over and the crowd being like, "Yeah, the babyface won, yeah," and then the show goes off the air. So yeah, it was much different feel to the end of the show watching on TV versus being in the crowd or being on social media a half an hour to an hour later seeing like, oh, more happened, okay, like but everyone kind of expected that, right? Like that wasn't not maybe not that he would do a pile driver again, but that's like it wasn't just going to be like, oh, the babyface won, yay, all right, let's all go home now. Like I think everyone, yeah, knew something was going to happen there.
and
um
to the chagrin of WWE, they've been really focusing on those post-show social media moments, right? Because even the feud we go back to Bad Blood, right? Wasn't the feud that originated with Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens? That was right outside in the parking lot by the bus.
yep.
That went viral. So it seems very appropriate. Even the post show commentary, they really lean into it. I think WWE has a good thing going. I know you and I kind of have some questions about their reliance on post show conflict, I guess. because it's saved, it's uploaded, it's shared, it's accessible, but it's also not part of the main narrative. Because if you did, like you said, if you were at the show and you walked out of the venue after the victory, or you were in the process of being like, I got to get to my car, traffic's going to be bad, or you were watching on TV, the stream ended, right? So you clicked off. And so WWE's really doing a good job of trying to keep engagement at all-time highs. They don't want you to turn away. And they don't want you to turn away not only in between shows, but they want to have you hooked online as well. And so wrestlers have like a different angle now to approach. And Kevin Owens is doing a fine job cutting those promos in a way that engage online, not just at venue. And that's the essence of his heel turn. And I think this heel turn marks a new era for ways talent can display a turn, whether it is going babyface or heel. You no longer have to do it live.
Right. And we saw a little bit of this with The Rock being back last year around
That's right.
WrestleMania, just him going on and just being like, I'm just going to cut like a 20-minute promo just because I'm on the internet and I can say fuck and shit and whatever.
That's right.
So yeah, I mean we've gotten a little bit of that, but I agree like with Kevin specifically because he's not like that kind of figure like The Rock is where you don't expect The Rock to be there all the time, so it makes more sense like we're gonna hear from The Rock remote like that. But with somebody that's like a full-time talent there every week, putting in house shows, doing all this stuff, it is like a kind of cool um like new way to go about it like you're saying, or not that it's new, but you know, just implementing that with somebody that's actually there.
Right.
And
There's
yeah,
some type of standardization going on.
for sure. Yeah. And we see a little bit this is a little more in the shadows, I guess, but like there'll be like talent putting just anything on social media, whether it's you know like Liv putting like, oh, me and Daddy Dom went to blah blah blah, and then like you'll see like a Rhea Ripley comment in there like gross or like you know just like stuff like that. So it's a little you gotta like look for it. They're not like gonna show that on an episode of SmackDown like, oh, Rhea Ripley said gross to when Liv and Dom were blah blah blah. Um,
Right.
so
It's like a meta narrative.
yeah, there you go. That's yeah. But yeah, so this Kevin Owens and Cody stuff is taking us through the new year here. They announced that they're going to be fighting each other at the Royal Rumble. So that'll be a fun match, but the main reason why we're here today is to preview Raw debuting on Netflix, which is going to be a big deal. Um they've talked it up basically like it's going to be like a pay-per-view level caliber card, and
Absolutely.
we see some of that already, and this isn't exclusive to Raw, like the talent that are going to be on the show, because maybe I don't know if this is the main event or CM Punk versus Rollins, but we're getting Roman and Solo Sokoa, and they're both labeled as SmackDown talents. um Something we can talk about at some point is whether or not there really is like true SmackDown talent and Raw talent anymore at all.
Right.
Because we've seen a lot of crossover, and the excuse could have been, oh, they were at Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia. They're just building up a title versus title thing. It's built in that there's going to be this crossover. But then, like, this whole bloodline angle, like, half the talent's on Raw, half the talent's on SmackDown. They keep bringing everybody back and forth with that. You see talent from Raw on SmackDown lately with this transfer portal stuff. Um, so yeah, we'll see if there's actually like real defined brands outside of like titles or whatever in the future here. I don't know what you think about that.
So many changes. I've texted you and I said, wow, Triple H. It's probably not just Triple H. It's a business prospect, right? And I just also wanted to add, going back to the acquisition of Logan Paul, that also streamlined the whole meta narrative analysis of, oh, this guy can go have a podcast, still have brand exposure for WWE, be synced in, have a win-win situation with his prime merchandise, and also plug WWE when it is necessary. So I guess, yeah, it does predate what we're seeing now. So this is a direction they're going. But going back to like Raw and brand allegiance and the draft, I want Triple H to kind of settle in. Maybe it's just because I'm a fuddy duddy and I kind of want some type of normalcy because we've went from 2 hours to 3 hours and now we're going SmackDown's going to 3 hours and then we've changed from Fox to USA and now we got Netflix on the horizon and then we have Saturday Night Main Event making a comeback and we have new women's titles. There's talk about a hardcore championship returning and it's like, whoa, breakneck speed for changes. Will that cause any harm to viewership and retention if you have so many changes that the fans, or maybe that's the era we live in? People want constant updates, constant refreshes. It's like the computer module, right? Seeping into culture. Everybody's used to refresh, refresh. What's the new thing? But for like a viewer and getting some type of narrative, you do need that long form storytelling. So I want after Netflix, Triple H, and the creative department to settle into some type of comfortable spot. And if that means doing away with the draft, so be it. I honestly thought, uh, like before the draft, it was very interesting because you always had the potential for creative to just swap, right? You
Right.
always had the potential of people to break through on other sides. It's just so much more flexibility. So the transitions are encouraging. If that is any sort of telltale sign of where we're going, so be it. That's great. Do away with the draft. And if you do away with the draft, keep the titles brand specific. So talent can chase titles, but the titles can't swap TV
Yeah.
shows. Because I don't know about you, but I do not want another Roman Reigns situation where one faction is carrying like half the titles.
Right. And if there was like not brand specific titles, then it would be weird because why would you have two like that you would consider the top title, right? Because if it's just gonna float around, like there aren't two that there's they would have to like define one of those as being the world heavyweight championship is less than the WWE or just get rid
Right.
of one of them. But they've done that in the past too, where like that was why Roman had so many belts is because he had the Universal Championship at the time and the WWE, but they just like merged those now and they just call it the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. Like that's the official title of it,
Correct.
even though the legacy is just WWE title. Um, but yeah, and I think they would keep those brand specific, and then they would keep like the two internationals on the same show, like the men's and women's, and then the two US, and then um, I don't know what the women's like official names of the titles are the top two, but one of them is just world champion, and then one of them's WWE again. So they would keep those together. Um,
Yeah, you need those tiers for the card, right? Yeah, you just do. And each brand needs that. And I think you touched on a key point, legacy behind titles. You need to balance prestige with prop. The titles cannot become just a prop. If
yeah,
they become just a prop, that's not good. Um, and I fear if you oversaturate the talent with too many titles and too many changes, they become less prestigious and more of a prop. So I guess my wise words from a viewership perspective would be Triple H, slow down, consolidate your innovation, and settle into a comfortable spot now that you're on Netflix and you have your marketing tucked away, you've secured good network deals. Obviously, SmackDown's still kind of up in the air, right? Because they're moving away from USA eventually. And then there's NXT. Maybe you can shed light into the future of those two. But Netflix is a big deal. We're going into an era where presumably there will be less commercial interruption.
Hopefully. Um, and that'll be interesting too because I assume there won't be like a hard cutoff for when Raw has to end, which was something that I was gonna bring up a little bit earlier when we were talking about the post Saturday Night's main
Oh
event
yeah,
stuff. Like, would they have shown that on Netflix because they didn't have a hard cutoff? I don't know. They could have. They can just implement their own hard cutoffs and still do this. But yeah, it'll be curious to see how the commercials work. I could see them doing something where like every Raw is for sure 2 hours, and then it spills over however long. Um, it could be up to 3 hours. I think maybe they just have like something in place where they're like, okay, we have this many commercials to get through an episode, whether it's a 2.5 hour episode this week or a full three or whatever it may be. That's just my guess. Um, but
yeah,
yeah, we'll see with SmackDown and NXT. As far as I know, they have their own entities as far as the contracts go for TV. So I assume I just think in the TV business itself, like the incumbent has like the ability to try and get the rights back first. So um, they'd have to play ball with USA whenever the deal's up with SmackDown, and then I don't know if they'll just get to like a stalemate point and then just not renew and then end up on Netflix, or if they ultimately do stay on like Peacock for PLEs and
that's right. That
that
too.
stuff. So we'll see. Um, for now, it's just for sure Raw on Netflix, and that's it for the US. If you live overseas or know how to appear like you live overseas, you'll get SmackDown and NXT on Raw or on Netflix already, and they'll have the PLEs as well, and they'll have the library that Peacock has. So, but as like a US subscriber, you won't have that library on Netflix anyway. You'd still have to go to Peacock.
And when you say appear overseas, is that a euphemism for VPN proxies, John? Are
Yeah,
you
yeah.
yeah,
Spoofing
that's funny.
location. Yeah.
There you go. No, so I feel like this transition to Netflix is actually pro-consumer because I don't know about you, but I've struggled to maintain a low cable bill to watch both
Yeah.
shows. It's like, oh my God, what are we? Okay, so we did cord cutting. And over the years, John, I feel like cord cutting has slowly just became the new cable bill.
Pretty much.
YouTube TV is pretty much the same price as any satellite or cable offering that was before streaming. And anything below YouTube TV price point is typically not that great. You're going
Right.
to get lower quality for resolution, pixel, whatever. DVR capabilities might be a little haphazard. So I'm very pro let's go to Netflix because it cost me under $20
Yeah.
a month to view WWE content. Peacock on also is a good deal, I feel. It's just at least at my price plan, it's about 10 something a month. So I'm happy about that. I do want WWE to consolidate their network deals to make it more affordable because that can only increase brand awareness. If people can afford to tune in, they're going to watch more of your content.
Yeah, exactly. And I won't get too into this, but like just the PLE numbers alone, like AEW when they still do traditional pay-per-views, and they get like I think under like 50,000 buy rate for those and stuff. And WWE, you're getting at least 2 million live, and then however many go back and watch it on demand. So yeah, I mean, definitely would be good for the brand even further, just having all that in one, yeah, like central location. Like when they had the WWE Network before all this, and that's what they still had overseas until now. Like when Netflix is starting, like
Oh.
basically they're just like importing their international WWE Network just onto Netflix, and that's yeah, that's how it's going. But um,
Well, let me ask you this, John. Is the streaming infrastructure there? There's some worries, lingering fears, right after Tyson versus Paul, but you assured me we're never going to hit those numbers.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe in the future. But let me ask you this, though, since you do watch NFL, how did that fare? Was
that
that
was it was really good. I don't recall any problems given, I mean, it was mainly on in the background. I wasn't attentive the whole time. So if there
right?
was like a buffer thing here and there, I didn't notice. Um, More of their problem wasn't streaming quality or network quality or anything. Like they had some of their own like broadcasting issues. Like they just like wouldn't turn
Oh,
on somebody's microphone in the right amount of time or whatever. You'd see somebody talk for like 5 seconds and then you'd hear
was
them.
that Netflix or the NFL?
I mean, it's collaborative, but
Okay.
I'd put it more on the NFL because all the people that were involved with this had come from like other broadcast networks and stuff, so they weren't like completely fresh to the game. Um, but anyways, so if we circle back to the actual event coming up here, um, Roman Reigns versus Solo, like we said, these are both SmackDown talents. Um, there was talk online. They were talking about adding like this tribal championship to their
Yeah,
feud,
yeah,
which
yeah.
I think they pretty much squashed at this point, which is was unnecessary because they have this Ulafala, the tribal neck piece, and
Mm-hmm.
that's symbolic
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
enough versus having like an actual championship that ultimately two people are going to fight over, and then maybe someday if like Fatu fights for it or something, but like building a title for like a family legacy to me doesn't really make sense. So I'm glad they're not doing that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, when I heard about that, I was like, no, no, don't do that because the Ulafala is enough.
exactly, that's all the symbolism you need for that. And um, I think we might see The Rock either during or after this match. You got to think he was a big reason that Netflix is on Raw, right? Because he's just this big Hollywood star. He wants to do exclusive movies with them. He's done a few in the past. So this being like this $5 billion contract that they signed, it's the biggest thing they've done since anything. So I assume The Rock's gonna show up for this. I don't know in what capacity, if it's to interfere or if it's after the result. But I do think Roman wins. I don't I don't see Solo hanging on to it, but I do see this being consequential for Roman, whether it's The Rock being, just pissed off or whatever it might be. What do you think? Do you think Roman takes it too, or
I mean, in an ideal situation, yes, but I do think The Rock is apt to interfere. I'm not one to think he will be after the fact, just because he's a heel, right? And what do heels do? Do they just sit back and go like, "Oh, yes, yes, very good. Yes, I was a spectator." No, they usually like interfere and they try to change things. Um, so I I see Solo actually retaining with interference
okay?
to set up the road to WrestleMania. But there again, I'm so confused with the trajectory because if you recall the last time The Rock was in the ring with Rhodes, he said, "I'll see you soon." Okay, what does that mean? Because Kevin Owens is going to face Rhodes at Royal Rumble, and then we have the road to WrestleMania. What is it, Elimination Chamber? I don't understand the trajectory or the implementation of The Rock, so your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, and that interaction did happen like the Raw after WrestleMania, so like that was 8 months ago now. So if he's not going to be around in like more of a capacity until WrestleMania, it just seems like any angle they have with him will kind of fall flat unless they just pull something out of their you know what like they did last year
Yeah.
and just like, oh, here's this magic sauce and it's just gonna be great. But
And they eat it
it
up.
didn't
Yep.
seem like it was gonna go that way. So yeah, we'll see there. I think it could go either way. So Roman's just a guess. There's gonna be a championship match for the inaugural WWE Women's Intercontinental Championship. The results of that, or who's going to be in that ultimately, is going to be decided on Raw tomorrow. Um,
That's right.
it's going to be Lyra Valkyria and
That's
Io
right.
Sky versus Dakota Kai and I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah, who is the
It's
last one?
not Zoe Stark. It's I
Well, I will say
can't
Dakota
remember.
Kai has definitely gotten a push since her absence and injury. For a while, she was on the back burner with damage control, so I am pleased to see her do more in ring work. Um, but yeah, I'm all for having that mid tier title for the women because I feel like sometimes they get too lost in between the tag team and the standard women's championship belts. A lot of women get lost in the fray with storytelling and they got to wait for their time, right? To either hit the tag team. Well, if you're not doing singles competition, you only have two other options. Okay, but you've been drafted to a brand, so now you have one option. So I feel like a lot of women like Dakota Kai and other talent, she's just a good example over the last year, that get thrown on the back burner and then put back into the fray. And usually, if it wasn't for this new mid card spot, what would they do with someone like Dakota Kai? So I am pleased with this new avenue for talent to be utilized on the women's side.
Me too. I'm real quick looking up who she's. Oh, it is Zoe Stark who
Oh yeah,
she's
nice.
facing.
It is.
Um,
That makes sense.
yeah,
Pure Fusion Collective. Somebody shortened the name. It's too long.
pure
But
effing crap. Um,
yeah, jeez.
so I'm predicting that it'll be Dakota Kai beating Zoe. I think that's why I don't remember Zoe. No offense to Zoe. Um, and
That's fair.
then
That's fair.
and then on the other side of the bracket, I think they'll put Io Sky over.
I hope so.
So that'll be a cool finals if it's Io versus Dakota, the damage control crew. Like they could take it, create an angle out of it if it's going to be break up damage control, or they're going to be just like, hey, good for us. We one of us got it. We're damage control. We're one unit. Blah blah blah. Or you, I mean, they said that Pure Fusion Collective took out Kyrie Sane from the tournament. Um, but maybe it wasn't them. Maybe it was one of the damage control people, and maybe there's internal conflict after that. We'll see. Um, but yeah, that'll be cool. It's fun seeing a new title, even though we just had one. Just the adjacent women's title on SmackDown. Um, there's rumors that there's going to be a last woman standing match for the women's championship on Raw. Liv Morgan, the champion, versus Rhea Ripley. We're all kind of ready for Liv to drop it to get it back on Rhea. Um,
Absolutely.
excited to see like what they end up doing with Rhea for future competition. There's going to be like 3 or 4 women that have been gone that could come back anytime, like Alexa Bliss, Carmella, um,
Yeah, that's
Charlotte
right.
Flair, Becky
Yeah.
Lynch. I'm probably
Oh,
missing
geez.
some
See?
too. So
Well,
there's
that's the point. They get put on the back burner, and where do you put them? How do you get them back in the fray? So many new avenues.
right, and they haven't really done anything with Nikki Cross yet. Like just her being a part of the Wyatt Six. That's kind of it. Um, so yeah, sorry to just breeze through that, but I think we're both thinking Rhea wins that if it happens. It's again
Absolutely.
speculative.
Yeah.
So
Full circle, full circle. Judgment Day lost momentum. The Terror Twins were just a brief little stint to combat the falling out. And I think you're 100% right. We got to give it back to Ripley, especially with this new era upon us. She was and still is probably the biggest woman star in the last 5 years,
Yeah.
as far as like organic pop fans getting behind her on all levels creatively, but also organically. Like the fans really enjoy her performance. And creative is all about it, but to my knowledge, it was a legitimate injury that had them pivot her title, right?
Yeah, a couple times. Like she legitimately got hurt in that backstage segment that Liv took her out, coming back for her Liv Morgan revenge tour thing.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
then the orbital bone. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, it's been a rough year for her. But I mean, it it draws things out a little bit. Like with the women that I mentioned coming back, like if they weren't back and like Liv didn't get hurt, let's say, and she had the title 6 months ago, like I don't know what they would have done. I'm sure it could have been fine, but just I guess like having Rhea in a position to chase because of these injuries and having that go awry and then same thing again. It's at least kept things afloat. But it's time to move on. Um,
yeah,
so and then the only other match that we know of for sure is going to be CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. Um,
that's right.
during a press, like a streamed press event thing, Raw did or WWE did from their corporate headquarters, they made it sound like it's going to be the main event, and I think it will be. I think the only reason that the tribal combat would make main event is if they don't have Rock come out until after, like if he's going to end
Good
the
point.
show. But I think, yeah, I think tribal combat will just ultimately open the show, and it'll go how you said, where he'll he'll interfere because he's a heel. That just makes sense. Um, as far as CM Punk and Seth Rollins go, this has been building for years and years and years and years, but more realistically, since Survivor Series of 2023 when CM Punk returned. Um,
Yeah.
so there,
And arguably, it was supposed to be a WrestleMania match.
yeah, and that again because of injuries, they had to take a turn on that one. Um, there's been a lot of like when CM Punk has been doing promos and stuff, like he's been a little more serious than he had been. And he's been shooting a bit. Like he's been saying things about Punk that I
Oh, definitely.
believe definitely he feels, because there's been stories of people like, for example, Corey Graves. Like, so Corey Graves apparently was a good friend with Punk, and then Punk leaves, and I think a few years after the fact, Corey kind of said like, "Yeah, we're not really friends anymore because Punk basically would it kind of disowned me for not disowning WWE where I'm employed and is my dream job." Um, and I'm sure he had that sentiment towards a lot of people where just like, no, you're just a WWE guy. A, you're not for what I'm trying to convey as like being a problem, or
A
whatever.
movement. He wanted a movement.
Right.
And it's like, Punk, you got to respect others' opinions. That's their livelihood. And I will say that McIntyre, Rollins, and Punk take the cake. They deserve the award for the best promos because I feel like those three have had the best shoots. Now,
Definitely.
there's nothing to confirm that they've been shooting, but I believe, as a longtime viewer, that those three have shot from the hip more than once over the last year.
Definitely. And with McIntyre, like I'm sure he did, but I don't actually know, like outside of wrestle lore, like why Drew McIntyre would have a problem with Punk as a person. Um
Right.
but that's besides the point, I guess. So for this match, CM Punk and Rollins, it's probably gonna not the same trajectory as what happened with McIntyre, but it's probably going to ultimately be like a best of three. Um, I could see whoever winning this match on Raw being like the de facto number one contender for Gunther. Um, we don't really have like a clear who the number one contender even is at this point. So to me, it would make sense to be one of those guys. And not that this feud needs the title, but I could see whoever wins this potentially winning the belt off of Gunther and then it culminating at WrestleMania.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we can always throw in the wild card of the Royal Rumble because, like, is the Royal Rumble winner going after Rhodes? Is he going after the World Championship? That's a good question now because I feel like that truly is a wild card. There's the very fact that we could see Cena get back into the fold at top of the card level, right? Because there's that last run to chase Flair's record.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I think that's a good analysis of what we're up against with Raw hitting Netflix. Obviously, there will be more to come. We have another Raw on USA, their last final hurrah and goodbye. So I'm sure they're going to fill the card with some other stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if something from SmackDown spills over into Raw, just given the bloodline. Otherwise, yeah, I look forward to it. I'm excited. I hope we get to do our recap in a timely fashion. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on before we kind of close out the episode?
I'm just gonna real quick mention Michael Cole and Pat McAfee will be on commentary. Yeah, we're all excited for that. Joe Tessitore, Corey Graves, and Wade Barrett will be SmackDown. I
Perfect.
assume one of those will be swapped in for McAfee when McAfee has to do college football stuff. Um, let's see. I'll just touch on this real quick. On WWE.com, they give like a brief, like, oh, tickets are still for sale for Raw debut, blah, blah, blah. And they got like
Yeah,
these featured superstars and people that were featured on there that we didn't mention were Cena, Cody, Gunther, and Bianca.
yeah.
So we'll see if they actually have matches or if they're there to cut a promo or whatever it might be. Um, and then I guess one other thing is they're keeping the TV PG rating for Netflix, so don't expect anything
Interesting.
crazy. Um, they might try to push the boundaries a little bit more than they would on regular TV, but it's not going to be like an M show now. So, um, yeah, expect more of the
That was
same.
a long time rumor. You're right. That was a long time rumor, and I will take a PG era with less commercials over an M-rated era with the same amount of commercials. So we'll see where they go. Let's just face it, keeping it PG is specifically for market appeal.
Yeah.
It's a business decision. It's not a creative decision.
Exactly. And I don't think there's going to be as many pre-taped shows going forward. Supposedly the Raws that are done internationally that we'd see that were pre-taped, they'll actually be doing that live from wherever is appropriate for the location that they're at. So then you can
That's
catch
sweet.
it when it's airing or catch it later if you're still wanting to watch it exactly when you want to watch Raw. Um, and let's see what. Okay, last thing, and then we'll go here.
Yeah.
There definitely will be some NXT call ups here in the coming weeks. One of the video
Nice.
commercials for the Raw debut shows Trick Williams in it, so I assume
Nice.
that's done, but they haven't touched on that on TV at all. So we'll see how that happens. I think that
Gonna whoop some tricks.
yeah, whoop some tricks. I think there's a show coming up on NXT where he could lose the championship, and then that would just move him over. But yeah, looking forward to that show coming up here. Did you have anything else quick? Otherwise, we're gonna take
Uh,
off here.
no, no. I was just gonna say that this may seem to our viewership a kind of a breakneck pace for an episode. We're just kind of getting over the holiday lull here for CCW, and of course we'll be back. And in our defense, only Saturday night main event was kind of the PLE, and we didn't We could have covered it. But let's face it, Raw on Netflix seems like a more extravagant event,
Definitely.
and it definitely is a turning point for the business. And we're excited. And stay tuned, everybody. We will have a recap in line, and hopefully a lot more answers from the Bloodline to what the World Championship scene looks like, the call ups in the women's division. We're going to have a lot of results and stuff to grade and talk about.
Yep. I'm looking forward to it. And then we'll have a Saturday night's main event the end of January, the week before Royal
Yeah.
Rumble. So more to come with all that. You guys,
Heck yeah.
everyone, have a great week, and we will see you soon.